you get to see a lot of digital innovation. You're also being a judge here at the mobile category for Cannes. What's exciting you about digital right now? What's the thing that's really getting you juiced?
I think there's a couple of things, and we saw some really great stuff on the mobile jury. There's over 1,000 entries this year, it's up over last year, so
Wow.
a ton of stuff.
Yeah.
I think to me it's almost bookends. There's the stuff that just really uses technology in a super smart way that's like that high-tech piece, and then there's just the dead simple stuff that makes technology appear as if it's magic.
All of these new platforms and all this technology is actually allowing, instead of brand advertising, we're moving away from awareness into advocacy. Are you seeing that brands are actually understanding that that's now what these new platforms are able to do, is brand expression?
I think so. I wouldn't say everyone's switched on to that yet,
Right.
which is good.
It's good. We still have a job.
Us, right? Exactly. Yeah. So I'll see you next year.
Yeah, exactly.
So they're not quite there yet, but I think that they're understanding that conversation, or at least we can start to have the discussion if brands are doing it yet. And the interesting thing is how things like social and mobile and in the overall digital space are coming together, because that's some of the best places to really create that advocacy, connection, and expression.
I think what's also interesting is that while that's happening, at the same time, the disciplines that we're seeing inside the creative teams now are varying. So we've got designers who can code and coders who can design. We're seeing this multi-discipline creative teams. Do you see that that's something that's a trend, and you guys watching that as an agency as well?
Absolutely. I think it's an interesting trend in terms of people. Like it's not enough. I think to be sort of a one-trick, very focused person is not as successful as it used to be. So you have to be that creative coder. You've got to be a coder who doesn't just sit in the dark room and code by themselves, but you don't have to be socially gregarious, but you need to be part of that creative team and those conversations. And likewise, if you're a creative, you've got to think about code and user experience. And so there's this interesting sort of overlap that's happening between all of those. And I think that's the fun thing too, because you bring together these people who've got all these different skill sets, and that's where the magic really starts to happen.
Well, when you think about it, we're kind of living life in beta from a brand experience, which I think is very exciting now. You guys have, you won an award last night, so congratulations for that.
Thank you.
Bloody smarty pantsers.
Yeah, hey, you win a Cyber Grand Prix.
Not so bad.
You're happy and your head's a little bit sore in the morning.
Now, 100 days of, Orioles, not that it's obvious, but it's one that was so simple, but yet so amazing. Orioles aren't considered a brand that can react that quickly. How was that? Was it a challenge for you guys to get your head around how you're going to pull it off, or was it something that naturally they actually understood that brand as an experience and as an emotion needs to be in real time?
No, I think the New York team did a fantastic job with that. I think you hit on the key, is that it was a combination of planned and unplanned. So there's a bit of an editorial calendar, because when there's going to be certain days or certain holidays or things that you can plan around that. But the other piece is that we really had to kind of leverage social listening of what are people responding to, what are the conversations, what's happening sort of in the news space. And when I say news, I mean sort of that broader sense of news and current events.
Yeah.
And that let us then have the space to really create things. But what it really took was sort of a team and a client, comfortableness with each other, and that sort of fast process to get together and really work as one team. It couldn't be if you think about software, and in software we talk about waterfall versus agile.
Sure. This
is very much a creative agile, because if it was been a traditional creative waterfall of here's a brief, here's the idea, or the strategy, and then the idea, then the work, there's no way you could have done 100 days, let alone one day in that time frame. So sort of changing that creative process.
It's the 60th anniversary of Cannes. I think creativity is alive and well, in my humble opinion. Do you think that mobile is a category that's going to continue existing, or do you think it's going to be sort of a different type of experience category?
I think it's great that Cannes did it when they did. It was probably the right time. If they would have made it a category a few years ago, it would have been too early. I don't know if I look out the next 5 or 10 years if it'll continue as a separate category.
Sure.
It probably shouldn't in a way, but I think when you look at cyber, for example, which was last night as we talked about, it's gotten so broad, like what's cyber, what's mobile, and so it'll be interesting. I think there'll be a couple of things that'll help define the categories. So there'll be the technology, but more importantly, it's going to be the behavior. Like how are we as people interacting with that technology? And so is Google Glass, for example, when that becomes much more mainstream and we're sitting here filming ourselves as we're talking to each other, then that changes that dialogue, which I think will then be reflected in the categories.
Chris, thanks for hanging out.
All right, man.
Really
Thank you.
awesome.
Oh,
Congratulations on your signing.
Thanks. I appreciate that.